All right, so you should have access to all these links on the left-hand side of Blackboard. So that was the syllabus we looked at. So let's take a look at the agenda. All right, so this is the my proposed agenda for this semester. The first week we're gonna introduce the course, see what it's all about, and right away we're gonna start implementing something. We'll introduce the first assignment, and my intention is to get you as far as we can already working on the assignment. I will then share this code on a GitHub repository, and you're welcome to use my source code as much as you want, right? To then either clone it or fork it or use it as your own, but my code. Right? Don't try and use someone else's code, and you can build on that all you want. Right? So we'll see how far we can go, and we'll use it as an opportunity to introduce some of the technologies that we're going to be using this semester. In particular, we'll introduce HTML, some CSS. A lot of it perhaps you're already familiar with. We'll just make sure we have a baseline and minimum understanding of HTML and CSS. We'll be introducing new and talking about HTML and CSS further along as we progress throughout the semester. But today we'll just talk about some of the more basic stuff, right? Also, we'll get a chance to introduce Bootstrap as one of the libraries, CSS libraries that allows us to very quickly implement mobile-friendly web applications, right? That are responsive. As you resize, everything resizes accordingly. Also, it provides all sorts of developer-friendly widgets that allows you to split applications in like a left-hand side, right-hand side, tabs, menus, and pills, and things like that. That you don't want to have to build up from scratch, right? So this is one of the approved CSS libraries. If you want to use like Foundation or Materials, or use another library, that's fine. That's totally fine. I encourage you to try out those other libraries. Don't just purchase a CSS theme or skin to make it look professional, right? That's not what I want you to do, right? Instead, these are libraries that are very popular amongst developers. Right? They're widely used, and it's part of the industry standard. So you can certainly, you're welcome to use these widgets. So that's where we're going to be focusing. We're going to start creating a prototype of what the application will look like. Right? It will be a static version of what the application would look like at some point. Eventually, it will be very dynamic. This first iteration, it will be a prototype just to typically it's something you would put a prototype you would put in front of stakeholders, right, early on in the development process, right, perhaps to elicit requirements. It says, hey, how about this navigation? Is this layout okay? Should we move this to the right or to the left? So you would create this kind of throwaway prototype, yes, that you would put in front of stakeholders to elicit some requirements and some feedback, yes. You would then come back later on and re-implement it in earnest, right? Typically, we would in real development, typically we would throw away the prototype, right, and rebuild it for real, right, with either React or Angular or whatever, but not. We must try to avoid the temptation to take a prototype and try to build an application around it. Okay, since it's an academic setting, it's okay to reuse a lot of the snippets of what we're going to be building this first assignment for the upcoming assignments later on. But this first assignment will be building just a prototype. It will be static. Right? You'll be navigating from one page to the next. Right? The data, the information displayed is not dynamic. Right? It's hard coded. Okay? As we progress in later assignments, we'll be focusing on different little parts of these, right, and making each part dynamic. Okay, right. So that's the first assignment that's going to go out later today. Next week we'll add a couple more features and allow us to talk about another technology, JavaScript. and we'll give us a chance to talk about dynamic user interfaces, HTML pages that are now can respond to user input as they type, as they drag, as they click, as they interact, and the website responding to us dynamically. So we'll talk about JavaScript and jQuery. We will then, in earnest, jump into our first JavaScript library, React. React has become very, very popular as a library that allows it to very quickly build dynamic front ends, very easily. And it's built on JavaScript. It's running on the browser, and allows us to use a lot of server-side ideas such as components and reusable components that became very mature on the server side, and have since migrated. Those same ideas have migrated over to the client side. Client-side development has become much more important these days as folks demand a better experience on the user interface, right? So projects, all the coding that we do on the client side has become much more complex. So it needs these libraries, right, to be able to deal with the added complexity of building such complex front ends. We'll stay on React for a couple of weeks, adding new additional concepts to the React library. We will point out one of the challenges of working with React, of maintaining state on the client side. Maintaining state meaning, the current data that's being displayed is based on the application moving from one state to the next. As it moves from different state, different data is being displayed. So that's one of the biggest challenges of building any application. How do you maintain state? So we'll abandon the default mechanism that React has for maintaining state, and instead we will introduce Redux. Redux is one of the modern ways of which we can maintain state on the client. We'll see why, what is the impetus of using Redux as opposed to the native support for React, state from React. So up to week number 4, this will all be on the client side development, right? HTML, adding JavaScript, dynamic, right? Adding React. We'll start moving towards deeper and deeper into the framework, right? Most of the first 4 weeks is client side development. On week number 5, we start thinking about, okay, well, this user interface needs data, right? The front end has no data. It needs to get data from somewhere, right? It needs to go out and fetch data from somewhere. So we'll talk about how the server, in this case, it will be a Java server, will be exposing a data model that can then be queried from React and dynamically render the front end. We'll see how we can expose a data model in Java and retrieve it using a RESTful service from React. So now the React user interface will be dynamic in that, as you navigate, right, it will display different content depending on what the server returns with, right? We'll then move even further into the framework, and we'll introduce databases, and we'll talk about UML and how to model a Java data model and implement various types of relationships, one-to-many, many-to-many, how to implement inheritance in Java, and how it gets implemented in a relational database. And all this data model being exposed as a RESTful service to Redux that will then render dynamic content in React. Okay. APIs. We'll then explore how do we interact with a third-party API, right? So that's going to be one of the big features of your project is interacting with a third-party API. So I'll choose an API and we'll create a small prototype of interacting with that particular API. That prototype that we'll build together in 3 hours in that lecture, right, will be the equivalent of the prototype that phase that we'll ask you to do for your particular project. Okay, so I'll build it here on my own in 3 hours. You should be able to build it that week amongst yourself as a team. Build a prototype of whatever API you chose, right? So ideally by this time, by week number 7, you've already chosen an API, right? You're somewhat familiar with what that API allows you to retrieve, what are the URLs and queries that you can send in the parameters, and you'll build a prototype around that. Having seen how I did it, you're welcome to use my prototype, yes, and maybe substitute with your APIs, yes. Okay. Then we'll have a midterm right before the break. Midterm, just like the quizzes, will be they will all be closed book, right? And again, there'll be lots of multiple choices, fill in the blanks, and they'll be graded on the spot. Let's see. All right, so we're going to be building actually 2 parts of an application of this content management system. Right? One of them is going to be the application that is used by the one who produces the content. Right? So somebody's using this content management system to generate content. Yes, in particular, the content is going to be courses, right? Courses that you would take at a university or whatnot, and the producers of this content would be faculties, right? So faculties would be able to log in and produce courses, sections, and topics, and drag all sorts of widgets into this content. So that's going to be the first half. So up until week number 7, we're going to be building this application from the point of view of the faculty, right? The one who produces the content. Yes? On the second half of the course, starting on week 10, we're going to create an application that consumes that content. Right? Look from the student's point of view. So from the faculty's point of view, they'll be able to edit, remove, modify, make changes, whatever they want, edit the content. Yes? From the student's point of view, they won't be able to. They'll have a read-only access to that content. Yes? They'll be able to register for a course, join a particular section, and then consume the courses and the modules and the widgets, and maybe take a quiz or exam or whatnot. Yes, but they'll have mostly a read-only access to the content. So to build the student's point of view, the student's application, we're going to be using a different framework. Right, we're going to be using the mean stack framework, which is it's an alternative framework that uses 4 different technologies to basically do the same thing as we use with React, Java, and MySQL, but we're going to replace these 3 layers. The front end is going to be replaced by Angular. The middle tier, which was Spring Java, is going to be replaced by Node.js. And the backend, the database, instead of being a relational database, it'll be a non-relational database implemented with MongoDB. Okay. And so with Angular, we'll implement the modules and web services that can talk to a remote server. In Node.js, we'll implement the web services and RESTful services that expose the data model for the Angular client. And then Mongo will provide this data storage for all the data. Now Angular is going to talk to the same database that was generated in the previous set of assignments, right? So we'll talk to the same MySQL services, retrieving the list of courses, retrieving the list of topics, yes, and displaying those courses read-only. Right, so from the student's point of view, they won't be able to modify anything. They can consume the courses, right? So Angular will be talking to the same MySQL, Spring Boot stack as a read-only. But as we add Node and Mongo, we'll add additional things that the student can do. For instance, they'll be able to join a section. Up to this point, we won't have a section. Right? They'll be able to take a quiz. Right? Up to this point, we won't have a quiz. Right? And where we store this information will be in a Mongo database. Right? They took this quiz, and these are their answers, right, to these questions. Right? And all that data will be stored in a Mongo database. Right? So students will be able to see what course they were in and the quizzes that they took and the grading for those quizzes. Make sense? So it'll be cool. You'll have an Angular application. They'll be talking to two different data sources, which is pretty cool, right? For a read-only from a MySQL Spring Boot server, but a database that it can write to, which will be a Mongo exposed with a Node.js RESTful service. At the end, the last couple of weeks, we're probably going to be focusing mostly on finishing up the project. Okay, so here are two topics, React Native and Vue.js, that you won't be expected to use in your project. Right? All these other technologies that we've been talking about, you're expected to choose a particular stack. Do you want to go the Angular, Node.js, Mongo way? And you can interchange, right? You can, there's 9 different technologies, right? Two front end, 2 middle tier, and 2 databases. And you can mix and choose any which way you want for your project. It could be React with Node, with MySQL, or it could be Angular with Java, with Mongo, right? So you can mix and match any which way you want. Right? They're all interchangeable. As long as you talk JSON all the way through, you're good. So the last two, even though there's an assignment for React Native, it's really too late in the course to choose that you want to use React Native. Although I guess you could. React Native would be a chance for us to explore something that you already covered, React.js. React.js is being able to create dynamic JavaScript-based front ends for the web. Right? React Native allows you to use that same knowledge that we acquired for building dynamic web applications to building mobile applications. Right? It's very transferable. Right? But instead of generating dynamic HTML, you would generate dynamic something else. Different tags. The tags change, are different, but the same ideas apply. And so I won't expect you to use that for your projects. Well, some of you might try. I don't know. We'll see. But there's an assignment for it. The last one, we'll get a chance to play around with Vue.js. Vue.js is another JavaScript framework that's also very popular, becoming more and more popular. And again, we won't expect you to be using that for your project. Okay? But nevertheless, it's a very cool framework to take a look at. All right. And since those 2 weeks, folks tend to focus more time on the projects, and my classes tend to start becoming thinner. I'll make sure to have some quizzes those last 2 weeks to encourage you to be here. The last week will be finals. That's the last day that we meet on the 16th. No, final grades are not due that week. No, grade deadlines is this over here. Yeah, this was from last semester. Project is due on the 23rd, so that Tuesday. Maybe I thought it was the 22nd. I think this should be the 22nd. It's a Monday, I believe. And then a week after that, I have to have grades in the following Monday. So the TAs and myself are going to have a week of time to grade those final projects. And the grades will be available for you to look at on the 30th. Okay? Any questions? Yes.
On assignment 7 and page 7 distributed between
I'm sorry?
Assignment 7 and quiz 7 distributed into 2 marks.
Assignment 7. Oh, I guess this should be assignment 8. Yeah, it's wrong numbering. This should be assignment 8, 9, and so on and so forth. I'll fix that.